seafood. It's one of the towering pillars of our Australian culinary reputation.
A reputation that's recognised throughout the world for its sensational taste and sizzling innovations.
But there's more to great seafood than just what you see on your plate.
And you're about to dive deep into the full story of how it gets there.
I'm Andrew Eddinghausen. I've spent the past 2 decades fishing for fun on screen, yours and mine.
Now I'm getting serious, teaming up with some of Australia's toughest professional fishing crews.
And introducing them to some of the country's most creative chefs.
Together we'll sail Australian waters from north to south
To show you the whole amazing journey from ocean depths to the heights of culinary delight in each delicious adventure of seafood escape. In the Arafura Sea off Arnhem Land, we've joined the crew aboard a 28-metre trawler on the quest for one of Australia's favourite seafoods. This week on Seafood Escape, I'm joined by head chef Colin Barker from Sydney's Boathouse Restaurant as we head out on board the Prawn Trawler Territory Achiever in the Gulf of Carpentaria to find out how our Aussie prawns make it to the restaurants across Australia. The Territory Achiever is one of 7 trawlers the Ostfish Company operates out of Darwin, part of a total fleet of fewer than 80 vessels licensed to trawl for tiger prawns in the vast area of northern Australia, from the Kimberley in the west to Torres Strait in the east, and including the Gulf of Carpentaria. All equipped with the same state-of-the-art trawling gear, specially designed to exclude large species such as turtles. The crews of these northern trawlers have been using TED devices since 2001. And they're now working alongside marine scientists to further modify their nets with additional devices to dramatically reduce the bycatch.
There's a lot of big machinery going on up here.
Yeah.
Well, basically, this is the control centre. All those levers that you can see there control all the winches that you can see.
Okay. The northern prawn fishery is working towards a target of reducing bycatch by 30% across the whole fleet in just 3 years, and they're on track to achieve it. Scientific tests of a new exclusion device in 2016 showed a bycatch reduction of a whopping 40%, with just a 2% drop in the rate of netting their tiger prawns.
You see like a bar sticking up there?
Yep.
That guides your wire across, so your wire lays even across the top.
Right, okay. And what are we after? We're after tiger prawns?
Tiger prawns are our major target.
Yep.
But we've also got other species of prawns that are,
Okay, so they go in at 6 and then out at 10:30.
Yep.
And then you'll see what you've caught.
Yeah.
Colin and I are learning more about this concerted sustainability program from Territory Achiever skipper George Cheeseman.
They don't generally like the daylight, the tiger prawns. They're a nighttime critter. Tiger prawn fishing is just general dragging, looking for the right line, trying to get you
Yeah, because we've started at 6 p.m, and that's lines in the water, so you're not actually allowed to put lines in prior to that. Is that something that's come through fisheries science, working with fisheries to make sure it's a sustainable catch?
Yeah, well, that's been in since I've been fishing. I've been up here for 21 years. Years ago, there was open slather where they used to fish 24 hours a day, and they did a lot of damage to the stocks, and so we're more heavily governed, which is good.
Yeah.
More sustainable, and keep coming out every year making money, so it's a good thing.
And I guess the business is see-through these days. You've got, fisheries knowing exactly where you are at any given time. Like right at the moment, they know where you are, this boat.
They know exactly where I am.
Yeah.
My VMS unit there.
And then, of course, you've got to fill out a hell of a lot of paperwork as well.
Yeah, I've got to report to the AFMA every morning for a catch log.
Yep.
My catches and my position and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so fisheries have a really...
Wildlife,
okay.
species.
Yep. There's a misconception back home that you see a trawler go out, they're going to just take everything.
Yep.
But you guys are basically on the water for given lengths of time. Or if this isn't a great season, they might even call it off early.
Yeah, they do an assessment on the fishery, which they're doing at the moment. If we don't meet a trigger mark, a certain amount of kilos on average per boat, they'll close the season early and send us home.
Yeah, so they'll be basically looking at what you guys are catching, and if you actually haven't caught enough, they'll be closing it down early.
Yeah, look after the stocks for the next year.
For the future.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, sustainability.
Sustainability through improved trawling technology and careful management of the fishery isn't confined just to the northern prawn fleet. Similar measures are in place wherever nets go in the water all around Australia. And devices such as this one that lets fish swim free from the net before they get to the business end are now being seen on trawlers of all shapes and sizes. The aim is to achieve bycatch exclusion as close as possible to the extraordinary levels demonstrated in this river trawling operation. And the bottom line is a continued sustainable supply of the prawns and other seafood we all love to find readily available in our local markets and shops. And that's just looking at the domestic market, Aussie buyers like you and me. There's also the bigger picture of the international seafood market. Australia sells over 1.2 billion worth of seafood to other nations each year, much of it due to the wild catch efforts of conscientious professionals like George.
Heads in our nets, which are to let turtles out and stingrays, sharks, so we don't catch any of that big angry animals inside the content. Well, they damage our prawns. No one was very happy at the start, but we all see the benefits in it.
So up here behind us is one of the devices that lets go all the turtles. So anything big comes out of the net before it even makes it to the hopper. All within a matter of a few minutes, the nets have come in, dropped the catch, nets back down again, and they'll be out for another few hours. So the nets have been brought in and they've just dropped the whole load into this big section out the back here. They're working up and over, this little conveyor belt's coming along and dropping all the prawns. And the prawns go into here, this little conveyor belt, taking them over into some real chilled water on the other side. Everything else goes straight down here into the tube and out over the side, and the fish are put back in the water as quickly as they almost come out. It's pretty smart.
And bound to get even smarter as professional fishers and marine scientists continue to work together into the future. We're getting down to business in the Gulf prawn fishery.
Beautiful big tiger prawn. An absolute cracker. Have a look at that. This is only what they're after. Would come up pretty nice in your restaurant, mate. Tiger prawns from the Gulf.
We're below decks on the Territory Achiever, where the crew really get busy.
Well, here's the grading. Basically, the different sizes are going into the different containers up the front here as they come off the belt.
Within minutes of coming aboard, the prawns are graded.
Then they're boxed up here, and they want them just to be just over 3 kilos.
These prawns are being graded as size U6. That's the largest prawn size on the market, translating to about 12 prawns per kilo. So that means each of these 3 kilo boxes will have about 36 prawns packed into it. And they have to be graded and packed at super fast speed, while still being handled with the care due to one of the world's great seafood delicacies. Meanwhile, back up on the main deck, more prawns are sorted from the small amount of bycatch, which is equally quickly returned back to the sea. The conveyor belt rolls on relentlessly in a long, hard work cycle that is repeated every few hours all through the night. It's a relay race run at sprint pace for the duration of a marathon. And while all that's going on, there's still more nets coming up. This one is a test shot, a small net designed to sample the prawns in the area they're trawling. It will give George more proof of the picture he's seeing on his screens in the wheelhouse and confirm whether they're on the right track or not. With the end of this night's marathon in sight, there are decisions for George to make in the new light of day. Is it worth trawling on in the short time they're permitted to continue operating after sunrise? Or will he say that's for the birds and give his crew an early break for some much-needed sleep?
I'm just going to turn around and come back onto my line.
So you finished up here and you decided to come down here?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have bothered if there was nothing in that last tester?
Yeah. Well, the moon popped up during that tri-shot there and then prawns jumped out.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Funny little critters.
The moon makes the prawns jump, the sun makes them bend back down again.
And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tug of war here with the sun and the moon.
It's worth another test shot to be sure that those prawns are still jumping. So a second small net comes up, and George gives the nod. There'll be more sorting and grading for the crew to do before they can call it a day. At least Colin and I can take a break to enjoy the morning sun and the aerial ballet of seabirds that comes with it. But even that short break won't last long, because Colin and I are soon reminded that we're on a busy working boat, and there's no room for passengers around these sorting trays. And when the long night of hard work is finally over for George and his crew, it's something like a shift for us, because the morning sun is our cue for Colin to switch hats from apprentice trawler man back to his own stock in trade.
I suppose we're going to throw a shrimp on the barbie today.
Throw a shrimp on the barbie here at sea. It's pretty good.
How good is it? I don't know that you can call them shrimp, but have a look at those.
Yeah, they're
huge. About as big as it gets. We'll just give them a little tiny hit of olive oil. So we'll give them a good whack of salt, a little dab of pepper there. You know, they're just so sweet, so, you know, beautiful. Look at that translucent flesh. Little trick there, I've actually skewered them. So instead of doing the multiple turns and
one flip and you're done.
One flip and you're done. I'd probably look at cooking them 98% just on this side, because we want to retain that moisture.
Okay.
That moisture that's sitting in the prawns is going to gather down in those shells, and they're going to cook in their own juices.
Right. And you keep the prawn heads on. Is that just for show?
There's also a lot of flavour in there. There's plenty of good stuff to eat in there too. You know, the little leggy petlet bit underneath is fantastic.
What sauce are you going to do?
We're going to do a little bit of a burnt butter sauce with some chilli, a little bit of garlic, with some soy sauce for our salt, and a squeeze of lime juice. Just give it a nice little lick of oil there. Got some butter over here. That butter's going to go fairly quickly on us. We might start off with a little bit of chilli, depending how adventurous you are. Quite a bit of heat. What we want to do is we want to create a nut brown butter, or a beurre noisette in chef terms.
Okay.
And then we've got some garlic here, just freshly chopped, just a couple of cloves. You can see now that the protein in these prawns is starting to set up the back here. Garlic's nicely toasted. The butter's got that beautiful foam going on.
Awesome.
So we'll add a splash of soy.
And what's the soy do?
Stops the butter from burning. Just a squeeze of lime juice. We've created a bit of an emulsion. There's a chefy term. And I reckon these prawns
coming?
They're pretty close.
Give them a
They'll literally take about 30 seconds on the other side.
Oh, wow, it looks great. That side,
look at that.
You can see that's all nice and cooked.
And have a captain cook at fishfiles.com.au for a feast of further information on the tiger prawn.
Time to lift and go, ET. Guys up here.
Awesome. Wow, how good do they look?
Yeah, look. Then we've just got our little butter that we made up. And just load up into those cavities.
Smells so good as well. Absolutely brilliant.
The old hit of lime.
Well done, mate.
That's
That's
it, ready
awesome.
to go. Cheers,
Brilliant.
ET. Thank you.
Awesome.
Find this awesome recipe at seafoodescape.com or at fishfiles.com.au. It's late on the second night Colin and I have spent trawling the Gulf with the crew of Territory Achiever.
Well, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. These guys work right through the night. The sample net's just come in, and they've got prawns more than they had in the last shot. I reckon there'll be a few prawns in this one. We're going to be involved in the sorting as well, so we'll be up on the table.
Both of us are now working like fully fledged trawler deckhands.
Certainly coming in pretty thick and fast now.
We've got ourselves up to speed on the sorting table, where you have to keep pace with the conveyor belt as you sort the prawns from among similar-sized fish, which will find themselves back home in the ocean within seconds, about as quickly as the prawns go down to the grading table. And we soon find ourselves gloving up for a new learning curve. Just what you need when your body's calling for sleep.
3 a.m. We're a little bit
dusty.
tired. A little bit dusty. but this is when the action happens.
Luckily for Colin and me, tonight's prawns are still graded U6, the largest 12 per kilo size, so they're easier to pick up in big handfuls that can quickly fill the 3 kilo boxes. But getting the weights right requires accuracy just as much as fast action, where the crew can almost do it by instinct. The newbies need to concentrate and ponder their way through every move. I'm pretty sure Colin will think differently about every kilo of prawns he unpacks in his restaurant kitchen from now on. And once this part of the process is carefully recorded, the boxes can be packed into cartons that will take them to the world. And for that, the next step in the process is critical.
How chilled is it down there?
Just around minus 40 degrees.
Minus 40. So the boys have to rug up the work down there, I imagine.
Snap frozen within minutes of coming out of the sea, the prawns are ready for market, wherever that may be. Our second Gulf sunrise, and the work goes on.
Exciting time when the winches pull these big nets in. You're hoping for a big prawn catch. We'll have to wait and see.
Whatever the result in prawns, we're already sure that these wheeling seabirds are in for some disappointment, because we know those TED and other exclusion devices are doing their job in keeping bycatch to a minimum.
Okay, here comes the haul.
This will be the last haul of Colin's and my time with George and his crew aboard the Territory Achiever. But as the nets come over the side and the crew prepare themselves for another fast and furious work session, I know I've got one more task to learn. I'm learning the ropes.
The knots each side.
Yep, so you loosen all this bottom section up so that it can easily be released.
And it's this
Oh,
one.
yeah. Oh, there she goes.
And that's my mission accomplished.
Hasn't been a bad catch. This is the daylight one. We did one about 10 o'clock at night. We did another one around 3 a.m. in the morning, and the final one around 7. So it's been a long night. Colin and myself are a little bit pooped. Cole's still sorting here on the trays. Lots of beautiful, healthy tiger prawns.
From his 2 heavy-duty days and nights on board the hard-working top-end trawler Territory Achiever, Big City chef Colin Barker has a fresh understanding of the high technology and even higher effort that goes into bringing prawns to kitchens like his around Australia. And this is where his kitchen is. The Boathouse restaurant on Sydney's Blackwattle Bay, where Colin is executive chef, sits perfectly perched on the waterfront, just a prawn's throw away from the Sydney fish markets. But before he cooks for us, let's get to meet him better.
From the age of 5, 6 years old, I didn't want to be anything else but a chef. And the old man's a plumber. He said if I became a plumber, he'd flog me, so I became chef around 15. And I met up with a man called John Slaughter, who was running a golf resort. It was close to home. It was sort of the best thing around at the time. And he was a really firm mentor, and he obviously saw something in me at a young age, and I wouldn't do it if, you know, I didn't enjoy it. I've got a fantastic core here. It goes beyond that of a workplace. My boys are family.
Well, Cole, Australians love their prawns. Now, these ones here look magnificent. What are you thinking about preparing today?
I'm just going to pan fry them ever so gently.
Yep.
We've made a stock out of the shells from the prawns over here.
Right, so you can actually use the shells for stock?
Absolutely. Most of the flavour in a prawn, or any crustacean for that matter, is living within that shell. And at the end, we're going to load that up with a little bit of butter and some garlicky aioli.
Yep.
In a technique that they call a bereed.
The only bad part about our trip on the trawler up there, the prawn trawler up in the Gulf, was the fact that we had to get up at 3 in the morning and do that haul then.
It's a long night when it's on, you know, and that's when they've got to fish.
So it's very well policed up there, and fisheries play a huge role. Okay, where do we start?
We've left the tail and the head on for presentation.
What I like is the fact that you've got 3 there, 2 for me and 1 for you.
That works, doesn't it?
Sounds pretty good.
How good is that? You want to give them a good whack of salt. And particularly these larger prawns, they can take a little bit of salt.
Okay.
And then with these guys too, we'll actually give them a little bit of pepper.
People at home can do this. They can actually get the prawns, put them on the barbie or put them on the hot plate. It comes down to what you put on them.
More often than not, it's what you don't put on them.
Okay.
It's about keeping it simple. So really, we don't want to go too hot on these guys. Introduce,
A little bit of butter.
I reckon we'll just cook 2 of these guys.
And so a bit of basting over the top.
Constantly basting, and you'll see there as we add that hot liquid to the top of the prawn, you can see it gently cooking through. I reckon that prawn there at about 30 seconds on that side. We'll flip it over another 30 seconds, and I reckon that'll be about it. You'll see that it's slightly under through there.
Yep.
And yeah, that's what we're after. We don't want to cook these guys all the way through because, once again, while that protein's hot, it's going to continue cooking on its way out to the table. We'll just lift those guys out of there. Chef's fingers.
Magnificent.
Roasting those shells in that pan, we've actually picked up so much flavour. We've got a little bit of a dressing here. It's made with some of the prawn oil, but the one thing you don't want to waste is those pan juices there. Okay. So we'll add that back in.
So mix them back in.
Yeah, mix them back in.
Oof.
Looks good. It's just a matter of gently releasing that skewer from the prawn.
This is the part where a lot of creativity comes into, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of artist in all chefs,
bit of flair,
I guess.
yeah, exactly. Beautiful.
Nice.
Wow, they look great.
Literally now we're going to finish our burrito, so that's our prawn stock. We've reduced that down. Just throw the old hand blender in there, just to incorporate it in. And
more creamy, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've just got our zucchini flour garnish here in the prawn oil. A little bit of that up and along our prawns. Bit of froth. And then literally just a little bit of shiso cress here. It's got a nice sort of anisey background note to it.
Okay. That's looking great. Look at those big prawns. I love my prawns.
How good are they?
I love catching them and I love eating them. Well done, mate.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Fantastic. Find the recipe at seafoodescape.com and at fishfiles.com.au, where you'll also find more on sustainable seafood. Australians love eating prawns like this beautiful tiger prawn, but with our professional fishers like George Cheeseman on board Territory Achiever, this succulent seafood would not be available to the Australian public. The industry's gone through some dramatic changes, and these days, the smaller fleet, with its bycatch reduction devices and seasonal closures, work towards a sustainable outcome for all involved. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we embark on another Seafood Escape. Air North is the airline I fly with when I'm travelling around Australia. They've always flown across the top end, but with new flights to Perth and Melbourne, they're spreading their wings. So give them a try next time you fly.